several years now, what we've been seeing is a slowly unfolding disaster for the Syrian people. And this is not a situation in which we've been simply bystanders to what's been happening. My policy from the beginning has been that President Assad had lost credibility, that he attacked his own people, has killed his own people, unleashed a military against innocent civilians, and that the only way to bring stability and peace to Syria is.
Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. With us now on the phone is an advisor to LigNet and the former head of the House Intelligence Committee, Representative Pete Hoekstra. And Congressman Hoekstra, it's good to have you with us today.
Hey, great. Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Well, according to the UK Daily Mail, Saudi Arabia warned the United States in writing about Boston bomber Tamerlan Tsarnaev last year. A letter to the Department of Homeland Security allegedly named Tsarnaev and 3 Pakistanis as potential jihadis worthy of U.S. investigation and provided information about a planned explosive attack on a major U.S. city. So, Pete, what do you make of this?
Well, obviously it raises some red flags, and it really points out the need for Congress and the administration to do what the military and others would call an after-action review. Exactly how many foreign governments and other entities may have warned America about these young men, or this one man in particular? What happened when we got that notification? Was it acted upon, and did we reach a resolution that said, this isn't worthy of investigation? Was it stovepiped? Was it never followed up on? This administration has shown a real reluctance to do the necessary oversight to make sure that we don't repeat the kind of mistakes that we may have made in the past. So Congress, it's too early to say, we missed this one, but Congress really needs to do the oversight to figure out exactly what happened.
Now, at a press conference yesterday, the president said that the attacks in Boston and Benghazi were not intelligence failures, a statement that he made in response to charges from South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. Is the president wrong to say that Boston was not an intelligence failure? I mean, you say it's too soon, correct?
I think it's too soon to make that judgment and to make that decision and statement at this point. How many names come in? How many names? What's the magnitude of this? Do we get 50 names a month? Do we get 500 a day? Once we do the necessary oversight, we'll be able to determine whether the system needs to be modified, enhanced, and improved, or whether the system basically worked the way it was intended. It works most of the time, and this is just one that fell through the cracks. At least I think most of us right now don't have enough information to make that judgment. But the president can't, at the same time, I don't think the president can be so confident and say, this wasn't an intelligence failure. He's shown a great reluctance to do the kind of oversight. What he's doing with Benghazi by his administration, by stopping the whistleblowers from testifying to Congress and potentially intimidating these individuals, really prevents Congress from able to do the things that are necessary to stop these things from happening again in the future.
Yeah, that's sort of my next question for you. How confident are you that we'll ever get the answers that we need from, this whole Boston investigation? The president pledged to have the most transparent government in history, but yet there's been this sense that transparency has been lacking on Benghazi. Do you think we'll ever really know what happened with Boston?
We have to know. Because what we need to do is we need to put in place the systems to minimize the possibility of these types of things happening in the future. We need full transparency. And this is not about throwing blame around. This is just trying to make sure that we do the right things to protect America. This administration has not been transparent. The best example of that is Benghazi. Here you have people who are so frustrated, and I know some of the folks that have talked to these what are wannabe whistleblowers, and they have been so intimidated by their departments and their agencies and by this administration from going out and sharing this information with Congress and the American people that we haven't gotten the full story on Benghazi. And if this administration continues the same policies and practices, we won't get the full story on Boston, which means we're not going to be enhancing our security to protect America going into the future.
Pete, you recently said that a foreign government might have been behind the Boston attack. Do you still believe that to be the case? And if so, which government is most likely to have been involved?
Well, I think there's always the possibility that the radicalization process was facilitated by outside forces here, whether it was a Lockheed or whether it was a government agency or whatever. But I think you have to look to some of the foreign former parts of the Soviet Union, not necessarily the government agencies, but organizations in these countries. And you always have to go back and still take a look at the work that's going on by Al Qaeda on the Arabian Peninsula in primarily coming out of Yemen.
Mm-hmm. The president yesterday recommitted to closing Gitmo because 100 prisoners there are on a hunger strike. The president says that Guantanamo is not necessary to keep America safe. In your view, is closing Gitmo a wise move on the president's part, and is the Gitmo detention facility needed to keep us safe?
Well, the president has never articulated a real rationale for why move the prisoners out of Gitmo, why move them to the U.S. shores and put them in a prison in the United States. I think, closing Gitmo is not a wise decision. And just because these folks are on a hunger strike in Gitmo, doesn't provide any rationale at all for closing Gitmo. What do we think is going to happen when we move them into the United States? Do we think all of a sudden, they're going to be model prisoners? Of course not. Anytime, the strategy here is keep Gitmo open, keep these people away from the homeland, and if they go on a hunger strike, so be it. Provide them with the medical attention and those types of things that they need. But just because they're on a hunger strike doesn't mean we go and close our prison and change our strategy. It would be a huge win for the folks at Gitmo and the radical jihadists and the people that have been clamoring to close Gitmo for years. It'd be a huge win for them when the people that have been a threat to the United States in the past, people that we have housed there, they go on a hunger strike and America modifies its strategy. That's not a great place, and that's not a great place for this government to be in. It's not a good direction for this government to be moving in.
Do you believe the Obama administration is returning us to the policies of the 90s that treated terrorism as a simple legal matter, thus opening the door to more acts of violence?
I think the record by this administration is relatively mixed. Obviously I've disagreed with a number of their policies when it comes to interrogations and those types of things. We've basically lost the ability to get the kind of information that we need about the plans and intentions of the terrorist groups around the world. When we said we're not going to interrogate you, basically we're going to read you your rights, or we're going to turn you over very, very quickly to the country in which you were captured. That's a bad policy. Some of the things that they've done, here in the United States with the Fort Hood situation where they refuse to call that terrorism. They're not giving the Purple Heart to the soldiers that were wounded or lost their lives at Fort Hood. I think that's a mistake. It muddles our message. At the same time, the president has been very aggressive in using drone attacks and those types of things and keeping the pressure on. So from my perspective, it's a mixed message with mixed results.
Last question for you, Pete, is on Syria. The president said yesterday that he needs to see more facts on Syria amidst attacks about his slow response to the revelation that Syria has been using chemical weapons. Now, Britain says the Assad regime is using chemical weapons. France and Israel are saying the same thing. Senator John McCain tells me that the president is backing away from that red line because he just doesn't want to get involved there. Do you agree with Senator McCain on this one?
Well, I think Senator McCain is absolutely accurate that the president doesn't want to get involved in Syria. I think, regardless of whether Assad used weapons, used the chemical weapons or not, I mean, he's been slaughtering thousands of his fellow citizens in Syria for the last year and a half, 2 years. What we as a country have failed to do is identify and articulate a clear strategy for what we want to get done in Syria and how we're going to go about getting it done. And I think the president is very, very cautious, not only because of what we've seen in Afghanistan and Iraq after U.S. involvement, but also by taking a look at what's gone on in Egypt and what has gone on in Libya after those governments collapsed. And, we really don't have an articulate, clearly defined strategy for how to deal with these governments, but more importantly, what we're going to do in the aftermath as a government collapses. And Syria is strategically located, bordering Israel, bordering Jordan, and all of those types of things. Hopefully what will happen is, rather than a political issue, the president and leaders on Capitol Hill will develop a strategy that will have long-term bipartisan support. This is hard. This is very, very hard.
All right, Representative Pete Hoekstra, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thank you.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.
Several years now, what we've been seeing is a slowly unfolding disaster for the Syrian people. And this is not a situation in which we've been simply bystanders to what's been happening. My policy from the beginning has been that President Assad had lost credibility, that he attacked his own people, has killed his own people, unleashed a military against innocent civilians, and that the only way to bring stability and peace to Syria is